Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about Linux Mint. So this has been a distribution that I've overlooked for many years, mostly just because I've kind of seen it as, Linux for the Windows user, right? Like it's a very oversimplified version of Linux, but that's clearly not true. The last time I tried it must have been a few years ago, but I booted up the latest version. I think it's called Ilana. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but today we're going to be talking about that, and it seems to be the best version of Linux Mint that I've found so far. It's beautiful, it's sleek, it runs really well. So far, I've had no issues with it, and I'm just really impressed how polished Linux Mint 20 feels. It definitely feels like they've done a ton of work in Linux Mint 20 to make it feel a lot better, make it feel a lot more polished. So let's jump into Linux Mint 20. Hey, and so we're back. We're here on the Linux Mint desktop in Linux Mint 20. Now, the desktop that I've chosen is Cinnamon, and this is really where I think Linux Mint is going to be shining. I think that Cinnamon has matured so much over the past few years. From what I remember, Cinnamon, I believe, is a fork of GNOME 2. Don't quote me on it, I'm not totally sure about that, but Cinnamon has really improved over the past few years, and it just has this gorgeous user interface out of the box, themes that work really well. I've themed my whole system purple, so that's just my favorite color, but there's tons of colors to choose from, and I can actually show you guys that now. So you just head over to Mint settings here, we go to themes, and you can choose window border colors, dark of course. And then icons, I went with the dark purple. Controls, went with dark purple. Mouse pointer, I like the black mouse pointer. I come from Mac OS 10 for the most part. I still have a MacBook that I do a lot of stuff with, so I'm used to that black pointer. And I feel like the white pointer just reminds me of Windows and the dark side. I don't like Windows. And then, once again, just the desktop theme, dark purple. Looks like you can add and remove some here, and there's some other settings. Yeah, I mean, the theme system in Cinnamon has improved so much over the past few years. This settings application also reminds me a lot of the Mac OS settings application panel. You've got all these kind of laid out items here. Still a bunch of stuff I haven't really played around with, but, it just seems really well put together. Now, of course, Mint is based on Ubuntu, but Mint really offers a lot of extra goodies that I enjoy in particular. One of them being this really easy driver manager. So I don't know if you've ever tried to mess around with drivers in Linux, but it is not a fun time. Compiling drivers, trying to find them, just a ton of stuff like that. Okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, so this makes drivers so much easier. I only have one, device inside of my computer that even can use a proprietary driver or needs one per se, and that's my graphics card. I have a pretty cheap graphics card, a GTX 1050. I am thinking about upgrading to a 3070 when they come out, if I can get one. Not totally sure yet, but either way, I got a 1050 in here, and I tried running the open source driver, the Nouveau driver, and it was not a great time. So I have a 2-display setup. I'm only recording on the first display here, but the second display just kept turning on and off with the Nouveau driver every few seconds. So I tried to switch to this NVIDIA driver 450 here, the recommended one. This wouldn't, for some reason, enable hardware acceleration. I couldn't get that to work, and then also the resolution wouldn't work. So I scrolled all the way down here to the bottom. I chose one that has an identical version number for the most part, except it looks like instead of a 2 at the end, this one has a 3. This one seems to work just fine. 1080 on both the monitors, 60 Hz, not a huge deal, hardware acceleration. So this is just the driver I'm using right now, and it is the proprietary one, and this is one of the biggest downfalls, because I want an NVIDIA card, because I want the power of an NVIDIA card, but I hate how it's not a good open source card. So maybe in the future, if AMD steps up their game, I'd love to switch over to an AMD card, but for a lot of what I do a lot of programming, so NVIDIA cards really offer a leg up when it comes to graphical computation, and so unfortunately AMD is not on the playing field for that right now. NVIDIA really has a lot of that AI space locked down. Of course, the flip side of that, though, is I have to use proprietary driver. I'm not a huge fan of that, but it is what it is, But so yeah, Linux Mint integrates a driver manager, and that works phenomenally well. I don't think it can do any sort of firmware, but I could be mistaken. The only distro I've used that does firmware, or at least from what I've seen, easily includes firmware updates is Fedora. From what I remember, Fedora did do firmware updates, and I managed to update my motherboard or my CPU or something along those lines with it, and it was, wicked easy, couple of buttons, restart, and then it updated the firmware on the devices, which is great, because out-of-date firmware can be a huge issue. But yeah, I mean, overall, Mint settings, really easy to get up and started with. I have no gripes with Mint settings. There's a lot of cool stuff here. I didn't realize you could access GNOME disks from here, but that's kind of cool. Just taking a look and seeing if there's anything here I haven't noticed. That's cool. You can hook up all your online accounts here if you want. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of adding accounts to my operating system if I don't have to, but options there for those who want it. This is cool. You can turn off recently accessed files, so that way it doesn't remember that. Yeah, I mean, Mint has a lot of cool settings built in here into their settings. Now, another really strong point for Mint that I found is their software manager that comes preloaded. I am not totally sure. Looks like it's called Mint Install. It's a very nice package manager. It's not super fancy. It does remind me a bit of what Ubuntu's been doing, but it's way snappier. So if you've ever used GNOME software, you'll know it's kind of a bit of a slower time. But for some reason, whatever Mint's done here, this is a much faster package manager than traditionally. You can just go in here. It loads up pretty fast, can click install and, do all that. I'm gonna, we'll install VirtualBox, sure, why not? And it just does it. It's fast, it's snappy. Package manager, as far as I can tell, it includes the Ubuntu repositories, and then also FlatHub, which is great. So you can install Flatpak applications right from here. You don't have to do it from FlatHub's website or anything. One big omission. Now, this is the big thing with Mint, is it doesn't include any Snap packages. Now, Snap is kind of Ubuntu's version of Flatpak or FlatHub, and it's a little weird because I guess Snaps, they don't really respect your privacy very well. It feels very not open source, and it really opens up to a lot of proprietary software, which I don't necessarily have an issue with because Flatpak also allows proprietary software. That's how I can get Spotify installed so easily and, a bunch of other applications. So I don't necessarily have an issue with proprietary applications, but Snap, I guess, really is not great for your privacy. And I'm going to pull that up now so we can kind of show that on video. Okay, so this right here seems to detail, from this article from ZDNet, this is a quote, and it looks like this details part of the issue. So basically, Canonical and the mainline Ubuntu distribution, when you go to install certain packages, through apt instead of through Snap, are just installing snaps behind your back. So it kind of violates that sense of trust there, where if you install an apt package, it pulls it from a repo. Instead, when you install an app package, it heads to the Ubuntu store. It heads to the Ubuntu store and installs the Snap version, which is not what you asked for. So, personally, I like it. I'm not a huge fan of Snaps. I think they're inferior to Flatpak in a lot of ways. Flatpak just seems to be, a better way to handle it, in my opinion. It seems to be more of an open initiative rather than, this one-sided initiative done by Canonical. But, it doesn't mean that snaps are bad. It just means they're not here in Mint, and it's not a huge deal because, for the most part, almost all the software is here that you need. And if you do need snaps, there are ways to install Snap. It's just, not included by default. And I get why, but yeah, so the software manager that Mint includes is really fantastic, does a great job, it's fast, and it seems to work really well. Another thing that I like about Mint that a lot of other distros are going away from, mostly distros running GNOME 3, there's not really any desktop icons anymore. So Mint still has desktop icons. You can still open up your home folder or, put stuff on your desktop. And I think that's really fantastic because once again, coming from the Mac side of things, you have a desktop, and Windows too, but, from the Mac side of things, you have a desktop. And this reminds me a bit of, the Mac desktop. You have like the Macintosh HD in the corner, or, all your external drives show up right on the desktop. The taskbar here does remind me, it's a bit more Windows-esque. You have, your start menu here and your kind of applications, and then you have your taskbar, or you have your widgets, I guess you call them, your widgets down here. I don't mind it too much. I find it to be a bit more usable than GNOME. So I suppose that's nice. I guess I don't have that much to say on this. I don't mind the menu bar. It's a little Windows-esque, and, I think that's great for a lot of people, and I just don't really mind it. A lot of Mint feels like it takes a lot of heavy inspiration from, Windows and Mac OS. You got the Windows menu bar here. You've got kind of that Mac OS-like desktop. This right here is kind of Mac OS-like. I don't know. It's not Elementary, right? Because Elementary OS is supposed to be that Mac OS kind of look and aesthetic. I was going to say clone, but it's not really a clone. It's just more of an aesthetic. But yeah, overall, Mint 20, really solid desktop. It's based on Ubuntu 20.04, which is based on Debian. So you're working with a lot of software, a lot of packages. You're looking at a very mainline Linux distribution that's going to last you a long time. This is based on the Ubuntu LTS release, so you're looking at 5 years of security updates from Canonical and presumably some from the Mint team as well. And then also it's free and open source software, so when Mint 21 comes out, you can always just upgrade. It's not a huge deal. So that's where I'm probably going to leave you guys off for now. Linux Mint 20, really great distribution. It is probably my favorite Linux distro right now. I was using Pop! OS for about 6 months, and I didn't mind that, but I really did kind of get sick of using GNOME 3. It just seemed a little slow, a little sluggish, even with the graphics card. So, I don't know, this was a nice change of pace. I am really happy to see that Linux Mint has matured and not only looks great, but is super functional, and I could see this being really easy for new users to the Linux community to just throw it on a thumb drive, flash it to their computer and then run it. It's solid too. Steam on Linux has gotten way better over the past few years with the introduction of Proton and all that, so you can run all your Windows games natively on Linux for the most part with a few translation layers. I did a video on the state of Linux gaming in 2020 a couple of months ago, so make sure to check that video out too. But yeah, if you guys have any questions for me about Linux Mint, or you have any suggestions for topics on the next videos, feel free to drop a comment in the comment section down below. But for now, I'm going to go and take care, guys. Bye.